The moon was quiet, too quiet. It hung in the vast darkness of space like a forgotten piece of rock, lifeless and cold. The ROR, rather, the lack of it, was heavy with mystery. Captain Ryan Hayes adjusted his helmet as he stepped off the landing ramp of their small shuttlecraft. His boots crunched against the fine gray dust that coated the surface. Behind him, his team followed, their movements cautious but determined. They had been sent here for one reason, to investigate strange energy readings coming from deep within this desolate place. Ryan glanced over his shoulder at Emily Dawson, the medic of the group. She was scanning the area with her handheld device, her face partially hidden by the reflective visor of her suit. Her voice crackled through the comms link. "Still picking up faint traces of energy, Captain. Whatever it is, it's close. Keep your eyes open," Ryan replied, his tone firm but calm. He turned back to survey the landscape. Jagged rocks jutted out of the ground like broken teeth, casting long shadows under the dim light of the distant sun. The horizon stretched endlessly, barren and unwelcoming. This wasn't the kind of place where you expected to find anything alive, yet something had drawn them here. As they moved deeper into the rocky terrain, the silence became almost oppressive. Every step echoed inside their helmets, magnified by the absence of natural sound. Then, suddenly, the ground beneath them shifted slightly. Ryan froze, holding up a hand to signal the others to stop. He crouched down and brushed away some of the dust with his gloved fingers. What he uncovered made his heart skip a beat. A metallic shard, scorched and twisted, embedded in the dirt. "This isn't natural," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. "Looks like debris." Before anyone could respond, Mia Carter, the communications officer, pointed toward a cluster of boulders ahead. "Over there!" she exclaimed. "Something's moving." They all turned their heads in unison, weapons instinctively raised. As they approached cautiously, the truth revealed itself slowly. There, sprawled among the wreckage of what appeared to be a violent battle, were remnants of two alien species. Twisted bodies lay scattered across the ground, some humanoid in shape, others grotesque and insect-like. Blood door, something resembling it, pooled around them, stark and sticky. But amidst the carnage, something caught Ryan's eye. A small figure, curled up and trembling, half hidden behind a fallen chunk of metal. At first glance, it looked like just another corpse. But then it moved. A soft whimper escaped its lips, or whatever passed forelips on its delicate, otherworldly face. "It's alive," Emily whispered, lowering her weapon. Ryan didn't hesitate. Ignoring the protests from his team, he stepped forward, his boots crunching softly against the dusty ground. As he got closer, he could see the creature more clearly. It was no larger than a human child, perhaps 5 or 6 years old if measured. By Earth's standards, its skin shimmered faintly, catching the pale light in iridescent hues of blue and green. Large, luminous eyes blinked up at him, filled with fear and confusion. "Stay back," called one of the crew members, a man named Liam, his voice tense. "We don't know what it is." Ryan ignored him. He knelt down beside the child, keeping his movements slow and deliberate so as not to startle it further. "Link," Emily's voice came again, softer this time. "Right. Be careful, Ryan." He nodded, though she couldn't see it through his helmet. Extending a gloved hand, he spoke gently, even though he knew the creature wouldn't understand. "It's okay. We're not going to hurt you." For a moment, the child simply stared at him, those enormous eyes wide with uncertainty. Then, ever so slightly, it leaned toward him as if seeking comfort. Ryan felt a pang of sympathy. Whoever or whatever this little being was, it was clearly terrified. Suddenly, a low growl rumbled through the air, cutting through the silence like a blade. Everyone spun around, weapons raised once more. Emerging from the shadows between the rocks was a massive figure, towering above them. Its body was covered in sleek black armor, its limbs ending in razor-sharp claws. Red markings glowed ominously. Along its chest and arms, pulsating with an eerie light, Ryan recognized it immediately. It was one of the species involved in the battle they'd stumbled upon. The creature's gaze swept over the humans. lingering briefly on each of them before finally settling on the child cowering behind Ryan. For a split second, the tension seemed to ease. The alien's posture relaxed slightly, and Ryan thought he saw something akin to relief flicker in its glowing eyes. But then, without warning, a stray shot rang out. One of the drones they'd brought along for reconnaissance malfunctioned, firing wildly. The blast narrowly missed the child but struck Ryan instead, slamming into his armored back with enough force to knock him off balance. Pain shot through his body, but he gritted his teeth and refused to move. Instead, he wrapped his arms protectively around the child, shielding it with his own body as another shot whizzed past. Time seemed to slow. The alien mother, if that's what she was, let out a guttural roar, lunging forward with terrifying speed. But instead of attacking, she stopped abruptly, her fiery gaze locking onto Ryan. For a moment, no one moved. The only sound was the faint hum of the malfunctioning drone as it continued to sputter uselessly. Then, just as quickly as she had appeared, the alien turned and vanished back into the shadows, leaving the humans alone with the child. Ryan exhaled sharply, realizing he'd been holding his breath. Slowly, he released his grip on the tiny creature and looked down at it. Its shimmering skin pulsed faintly as if responding to his presence. Despite everything, it seemed calmer. "Now, what do we do with it?" Liam asked, his voice hesitant. Ryan hesitated, glancing back at Emily. She met his gaze through her visor, her expression unreadable. Finally, he said firmly, "We take it with us. It's injured, scared, and probably lost. We can't just leave it here." Emily nodded after a pause. Agreed. "Let's get it back to the ship." As they carefully lifted the child and began making their way back to the shuttle, none of them noticed the faint glow of red eyes watching them from afar. Somewhere in the darkness, the alien mother waited, her intentions unclear but her focus unmistakably fixed on the human who had dared to protect her child. Back aboard the Horizon, the small scout ship that had carried them to the moon, the crew worked quickly to stabilize the alien child. Ryan sat on a medical bed in the cramped infirmary, his armor removed and his back bandaged where the stray blast had struck him. The pain was still there, sharp and persistent, but it didn't matter. His mind kept drifting back to the moment when he'd shielded the child. When he'd made the split-second decision to put himself between it and danger, Emily moved around the room with practiced efficiency, her hands steady as she tended to. The little alien? She called it Luma, a name she'd chosen based on the soft glow of its skin. "It fits," she said quietly while applying a soothing gel to one of Luma's injuries. "And besides, we can't just keep calling it it." Ryan nodded absently, watching as Luma lay motionless on the examination table. Its large eyes were closed now, its breathing slow and even. Whatever trauma it had endured seemed to have taken its toll, leaving the child exhausted. But even in sleep, Luma radiated an odd sense of calm, as if sensing it was safe here among these strangers. "She's different," Ryan murmured after a long silence. He didn't know why he felt compelled to say it aloud, but the words slipped out anyway. Emily glanced at him briefly before returning her attention to Luma. "Different how? I don't know." Ryan hesitated, searching for the right way to explain what he meant. "It's like she understands us, even though we can't talk. I feel like she knows we're trying to help." Emily smiled faintly, though there was a hint of sadness in her expression. "Maybe she does. Or maybe you're just projecting, because you want to believe it." Ryan didn't argue. Hey, maybe Emily was right. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something special about Luma, something more than just her shimmering skin or luminous eyes. As the hours passed, Luma began to stir. At first, it was Satola twitch of her fingers, a slight shift in her posture. Then, slowly, her eyes fluttered open. The room fell silent as everyone turned to look at her. For a moment, Luma simply stared up at the ceiling, her gaze unfocused. When she finally noticed the humans standing nearby, her body tensed, and a soft chirp escaped her lips. "It's okay," Ryan said immediately, stepping closer. His voice was gentle, almost soothing. "You're safe here." To everyone's surprise, Luma tilted her head slightly, studying him with those wide, glowing eyes. Then, tentatively, she reached out a tiny hand toward him. Ryan hesitated for only a second before extending his own hand, palm up. Her fingers brushed against his, cool and smooth, sending a strange sensation through his skin, not unpleasant, but definitely unfamiliar. "Well," Lee said softly, breaking the silence, "that's new." Over the next few days, Luma began to adapt to her surroundings, or perhaps it was the other way around. The crew found themselves adjusting their routines to accommodate her presence. Meals became quieter affairs as they tried not to startle her. Conversations were spoken in hushed tones, and movements were deliberate and slow. It wasn't long before Luma started mimicking some of their behaviors. She watched intently as Emily prepared food packets, copying the way the medic handled objects. When Ryan walked past her, she would toddle after him, her steps awkward but determined. The bond between Ryan and Luma grew stronger with each passing day. Though they couldn't communicate through words, they developed a kind of unspoken understanding. A glance, a gesture, or even the tone of Ryan's voice was enough to convey meaning. Luma seemed particularly drawn to him, often clinging to his side whenever he entered the room. Some of the crew joked that she thought of him as her surrogate father, but Ryan didn't mind. If anything, he felt a sense of responsibility toward her, one that went beyond duty or obligation. Not everyone shared his perspective. However, Liam, the same crew member who had urged caution during their initial encounter, voiced his concerns during one of their briefings. "We don't know what this thing is capable of," he argued, pacing back and forth in the cramped meeting area. "For all we know, it could be dangerous. What if it's carrying some kind of alien virus? Or worse, what if it's a weapon?" "It's not a weapon," Ryan countered sharply, his patience wearing thin. "It's a child. Scared, injured child who needs our help. And what happens when its mother comes looking for it?" Liam shot back. "'Cause, trust me, she will. And when she does, do you really think she's going to thank us for keeping her kid?" The room fell silent at that. Everyone knew Liam had a point. Since their encounter on the moon, the crew had been monitoring their surroundings closely, wary of any signs of pursuit. So far, nothing had appeared on their sensors, but that didn't mean they were safe. The alien mother's glowing red eyes haunted Ryan's thoughts, lingering like a shadow in the back of his mind. Mia, the communications officer, broke the tension by clearing her throat. She began hesitantly. "I've been picking up some unusual activity on long-range scans. Not ships exactly, but signals. They're faint, but they're definitely coming from the direction we came." "Could be her," Emily said quietly. "Or others like her." Ryan frowned, leaning forward in his seat. "Others." Mia nodded. "There are multiple sources. Some of them seem to be converging on our location." "Doesn't sound good," Liam muttered under his breath. "No," Ryan agreed, his jaw tightening. "It doesn't." Despite the growing unease among the crew, life aboard the Horizon continued as normally as possible. Luma remained the center of attention, her presence both a source of wonder and anxiety. One evening, as Ryan sat cross-legged on the floor of the common area, Luma crawled into his lap and rested her head against his chest. He wrapped his arms around her protectively, marveling at how small and fragile she felt. For a moment, he allowed himself to forget about the dangers lurking outside and simply enjoyed the quiet companionship. But peace never lasts long in space. It happened late at night, while most of the crew was asleep. An alarm blared suddenly, jolting everyone awake. Ryan bolted upright, his heart pounding as he scrambled to pull on his boots. By the time he reached the bridge, the others were already there, their faces pale with worry. "What's going on?" he demanded, striding toward Mia's station. She looked up at him, her expression grim. "Multiple contacts approaching fast. Looks like ships." "How many?" Ryan asked, bracing himself for the answer. "At least 6, Mia replied, "and they're gaining speed." The implications hit Ryan like a punch to the gut. 6. Ships meant 6 potential enemies or worse. 6 factions vying for control of Luma. He glanced over his shoulder at Emily, who stood near the doorway holding Luma in her arms. The child looked frightened, her glowing skin dimming slightly as if reacting to the tension in the air. "We need to prepare for the worst," Ryan said firmly, turning back to face the crew. "Arm yourselves and secure the ship. You don't know who or what's coming for us." As the crew sprang into action, Ryan couldn't help but wonder if protecting Luma had been a mistake. He had acted on instinct, driven by compassion and a desire to do what was right. But now, as the unknown loomed closer, he began to question whether his actions had put them all in greater danger. Still, he refused to regret it. Luma was innocent, a victim of circumstances far beyond her control. Sacrificing everything meant giving her a chance at survival, then so be it. Ryan clenched his fists, resolve hardening within him. No matter what happened next, he would stand by his decision and by Luma. The crew of the Horizon worked quickly, their movements sharp and precise as they prepared for the inevitable confrontation. The 6 approaching ships were closing in fast, their trajectories clear on the scanners. Mia sat at her station, her fingers flying over the controls as she tried to gather more information about the incoming vessels. "They're not broadcasting any identification signals," she reported, her voice tense. "But their energy signatures match to distinct profiles. Some belong to the same species as Luma's mother. The others are unknown." Ryan clenched his jaw, standing near the center of the bridge with his arms crossed. His mind raced, trying to piece together what this meant. Were these rival factions, allies, or something entirely different? Whatever the case, one thing was certain. They weren't here for a friendly chat. "Weapons online," Liam announced from his post, his tone clipped. "We're no match for 6 ships if they decide to attack." Emily stood nearby, holding Luma close to her chest. The child seemed to sense the tension in the air, her glowing skin flickering faintly like a candle in the wind. She let out a soft chirp, pressing her face into Emily's shoulder. Ryan glanced at them briefly before turning back to the rest of the crew. "We need to buy ourselves time," he said firmly. "Mia, can you send out a distress signal?" Mia shook her head without looking up. "Not enough time. They'll be within firing range before our message reaches anyone who could help."
Right.
"Then we'll have to outmaneuver them," Ryan replied, his voice steady despite the growing unease. Inside him, he turned to Liam. "Plot a course through the asteroid field ahead. If we can lose them there, we might stand a chance." Liam raised an eyebrow skeptically. "You want us to fly into a death trap? Those rocks will tear us apart if we make even one wrong move." "It's either that or sit here and wait for them to blow us out of the sky," Ryan shot back. "Do it?" Liam hesitated for a moment, then nodded reluctantly. His hands moved over the controls, plotting a risky path through the dense field of floating debris. The asteroids were jagged and massive, spinning lazily in the void of space. Navigating between them would require precision and luck. As the engines roared to life, the ship lurched forward, throwing everyone off balance momentarily. Ryan grabbed onto a nearby console to steady himself, his eyes fixed on the view screen as the first asteroids came into view. The crew braced themselves for what was sure to be a harrowing ride. The chase began almost immediately. The 6 ships followed closely behind, their sleek designs cutting through space with alarming speed. Laser fire erupted around the horizon, narrowly missing the hull as the smaller vessel darted between the massive rocks. Alarms blared constantly, warning of collisions and incoming projectiles. Dust and debris scraped against the shields, creating eerie streaks of light across the windows. "Hold on," Liam shouted as he yanked the controls hard to the left, barely avoiding a collision with a spinning boulder the size of a small moon. The ship shuddered violently, sending loose items tumbling across the floor. In the chaos, Ryan found himself thinking about Luma. She was still clinging to Emily, her tiny body trembling with fear. He wanted to go to her, to reassure her that everything would be okay, but there was no time. Instead, he focused on helping the crew stay alive long enough to escape. Another ship just broke off from the group. Mia called out suddenly, her voice rising above the din. "It's heading straight for us." Ryan spun toward the view screen, his heart sinking as he saw one of the alien vessels veer sharply, breaking away from the pack. Its design was unmistakably belonged to Luma's species, and judging by its aggressive maneuvers, it wasn't interested in negotiation. "They're hailing us," Mia added, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the comms system. "Put it through," Ryan ordered, stepping closer to the main console. A low growl filled the room as the transmission connected. On the screen appeared the towering figure of an alien, the same one who had confronted them on the moon, Luma's mother. Her glowing red markings pulsed angrily as she leaned closer to the camera, her sharp teeth glinting menacingly. "You took my child," she snarled, her voice deep and guttural. Though the words were translated imperfectly, the meaning was clear. "Return her now, or you will face consequences far greater than your fragile lives can endure." Ryan swallowed hard, forcing himself to remain calm. "We didn't take her," he replied evenly. "We found her injured and alone. We've kept her safe." For a moment, the alien mother stared at him, her expression unreadable. Then, unexpectedly, her gaze softened, slightly as much as such a fierce creature could soften. She tilted her head, studying Ryan with piercing intensity. Finally, she spoke again, her tone less hostile but no less commanding. "Prove it." Before Ryan could respond, another blast rocked the ship, throwing everyone to the ground. One of the rival ships had fired, clearly uninterested in diplomacy. The alien mother's vessel jerked sideways, dodging the attack with ease. She let out a roar of fury, her attention shifting to the aggressor. "Now's our chance," Ryan shouted, scrambling to his feet. "Liam, get us deeper into the field." Liam nodded, his hands moving furiously over the controls. The ship accelerated, weaving through the asteroids with increasing desperation. Behind them, the alien mother engaged the rival vessel, unleashing a barrage of weapons fire that lit up the darkness of space. Explosions erupted in the distance, illuminating the jagged rocks like fireworks. For a brief moment, it seemed like they might actually escape. But then, disaster struck. A stray asteroid clipped the edge of their shield, sending shockwaves rippling through the ship. Lights flickered, and alarms screamed louder than ever. Sparks flew from a damaged console, forcing Ryan to duck out of the way. "We're losing power," Liam yelled, his voice strained. "Shields are down to 20%. Gritted his teeth, scanning the chaos around him. They couldn't keep this up much longer. Sooner or later, they'd make a mistake, and when they did, it would cost them everything. Suddenly, Emily's voice cut through the noise. "Ryan, we need to do something about Luma." He turned to see her struggling to hold the frightened child who was squirming wildly in her arms. Luma's glow had grown erratic, pulsing brightly, and then dimming almost completely. It was as if her emotions were feeding into the very fabric of her being, amplifying the tension around them. Ryan hesitated, torn between staying on the bridge to help the crew and going to comfort Luma. Before he could decide, the decision was made for him. The ship jolted violently again, throwing Emily off balance. She stumbled backward, nearly dropping Luma in the process. Without thinking, Ryan sprinted across the room, catching the child just in time. He cradled her gently, whispering soothing words under his breath. To his surprise, Luma calmed almost. Instantly, her glow steadying as she nestled against his chest. For a moment, the world outside faded away, leaving only the two of them. But reality came crashing back all too soon. Another explosion rocked the ship, this time closer than before. Smoke began filling the air, stinging their eyes and making it harder to breathe. Ryan knew they couldn't last much longer not like this. "We need to surrender," he said finally, his voice heavy with resignation. "If we don't, they'll destroy us." The crew exchanged uneasy glances, but no. One argued. Elle knew he was right. As much as they hated the idea of giving up, they had no other choice. Not if they wanted to survive. Ryan stepped back toward the main console, activating the comms link once more. "We're standing down," he announced, raising his hands. "In a gesture of peace, we mean no harm. Let us talk." There was a long pause, during which the entire crew held their breath. Then, slowly, the alien mother's voice came through the speakers. "Very well," she growled. "But know this, if you betray my trust, your fate will be sealed." Ryan nodded grimly, clutching Luma tightly to his chest. Whatever happened next, he vowed silently to protect her to the very end. The tension aboard the Horizon was thick enough to cut with a knife. After Ryan's decision to surrender, the crew worked silently, their movements weighed down by uncertainty. They powered down the ship's weapons and brought it to a halt. In the shadow of a massive asteroid, its jagged surface looming like a dark mountain against the endless void of space. The rival ships had pulled back slightly, their aggressive maneuvers replaced by cautious circling. Only the alien mother's vessel remained close. Hovering ominously just outside the viewport, Ryan stood near the airlock, holding Luma securely. In his arms, she clung to him tightly, her small hands gripping the fabric of his uniform as if afraid he might disappear. Glowing skin pulsed faintly, casting soft waves of light across the dimly lit corridor. Despite everything happening around them, she seemed calmer now, perhaps. Sensing that Ryan wasn't going to let anything happen to her, Emily approached him, her face pale but determined. "Are you sure about this?" she asked quietly, glancing at the child. "Once we step out there, we're completely exposed." Ryan nodded without hesitation. "We don't have a choice," he replied. "If we stay here, they'll tear the ship apart and us with it. At least this way we might have a chance to explain ourselves." Emily hesitated, then placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Just be careful. Whatever happens, don't forget why we're doing this." Ryan gave her a small, grateful smile before turning his attention back to the task at hand. He adjusted his grip on Luma, making sure she was comfortable, and took a deep breath. "Let's go." The airlock hissed open, and Ryan stepped through, emerging onto the barren surface of the asteroid. The coldness of space pressed against his suit, though the environmental controls kept him insulated. Behind him, Liam and 2 other crew members followed, their weapons holstered as a sign of goodwill. Ahead of them, the alien mother awaited, standing tall and imposing beneath the glow of distant stars. Her presence was overwhelming. Even through her armor, her sheer size and power radiated outward, demanding respect or fear. Her glowing red markings pulsed steadily, casting an eerie light across the rocky terrain. For a moment, no one moved. The silence stretched endlessly, broken only by the faint hum of their suits' life support systems. Finally, the alien mother spoke, her voice low and commanding. "You claim to have protected my child," she began, her gaze fixed on Ryan. "Prove it." Ryan swallowed hard, stepping forward cautiously. He held Luma out slightly, allowing the mother to see her clearly. "She was injured when we found her," he explained, keeping his tone calm and steady. "We didn't know who she was or where she came from. All we knew was that she needed help. So we gave it to her." The alien mother studied him intently, her sharp eyes narrowing. Then, slowly, she extended one clawed hand toward Luma. The child whimpered softly, pressing closer to Ryan, sensing her fear. Ryan tightened his hold on her protectively, shielding her from the mother's reach. "She's scared," Ryan said firmly. "She doesn't trust you yet. And honestly, I don't blame her. You've been absent for however long she's been alone out here." For a split second, anger flashed across the mother's face. Her claws flexed dangerously, and Ryan braced himself for an attack. But instead of lashing out, she let out a low growl and took a step back. "Do not presume to lecture me, human," she snarled. "You know nothing of what I have endured to find her." Ryan met her gaze unflinchingly. "Maybe not," he admitted, "but I do know what it means to protect someone you care about. That's all I've done since we found her. If you want her back, fine. But you'll have to prove to her and to me that you deserve her trust." The alien mother's expression softened ever so slightly, though her posture remained rigid. She tilted her head, studying Ryan with renewed interest. "You are brave," she said after a long pause. "If you would stand before me so boldly." "I'm not trying to be brave," Ryan replied honestly. "I'm just trying to do what's right for her." Before the conversation could continue further, chaos erupted. A sudden blast rocked the asteroid, sending everyone stumbling backward. One of the rival ships had broken formation and opened fire, its weapons targeting both the alien mother and the horizon. Laser beams streaked across the sky, striking the ground mere meters away and kicking up clouds of dust and debris. "Get down!" Ryan shouted, dropping to one knee and pulling Luma close to shield her from the incoming fire. Around him, the crew scrambled for cover, while the alien mother roared in fury and retaliated with devastating force. Her claws sliced through the air as she launched herself at the attacking vessel. Her movements swift and precise. Ryan's heart raced as he watched the battle unfold. The rival ship was heavily armed, its sleek design built for combat. It unleashed a barrage of missiles, forcing the alien mother to dodge and weave between the blasts. Despite her strength and agility, even she couldn't hold off such firepower indefinitely. "We need to move," Emily yelled, grabbing Ryan's arm. "We stay here. We're sitting ducks." Ryan nodded reluctantly, knowing she was right. But as he started to rise, Luma let out a frightened chirp, clinging to him even tighter. He realized then that leaving wasn't an option, not while the fighting raged around them. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to save himself, but he couldn't abandon Luma or the alien mother who had come looking for her. Instead, he did the opposite, as another explosion sent shockwaves rippling through the ground. Ryan surged forward, placing himself directly between Luma and the incoming fire. His body absorbed the impact of shrapnel and debris, his suit's protective layers straining. Under the assault, pain shot through him, sharp and relentless, but he refused to budge. "Ryan, stop!" Emily cried, lunging toward him. But before she could reach him, the alien mother intervened. With a deafening roar, she leapt into the fray, using her massive frame to block the worst of the attacks. Her glowing markings flared brightly as she unleashed a concentrated burst of energy, disabling the rival ship's weapon systems in a single devastating strike. The battlefield fell silent once more, save for the crackling of damaged equipment and the faint hum of engines powering down. Smoke drifted lazily through the air, mingling with the dust kicked up by the explosions. Ryan staggered to his feet, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Blood trickled from a gash on his forehead, but he barely noticed. His focus remained entirely on Luma, who was still cradled safely in his arms. The alien mother turned to face him, her expression unreadable. For a moment, she simply stared at him, her glowing eyes filled with something akin to awe or perhaps gratitude. Then, without warning, she knelt down beside him, lowering her massive form until she was eye level with Ryan. "You risk your life for mine?" she said slowly, her voice softer than before. "Why?" Ryan hesitated, unsure how to answer. Finally, he shrugged. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said simply. "Because she matters to you, to me, to everyone who cares about her." The alien mother regarded him silently for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she reached out and placed a clawed hand gently on his shoulder. It was a gesture of thanks, one that transcended language and species. Ryan felt a surge of relief wash over him, though he knew the danger wasn't over yet. As the surviving rival ships retreated into the distance, the alien mother rose to her full height once more. She looked down at Ryan, her glowing markings dimming slightly as she regained her composure. "You have earned my respect, human," she declared. "Now tell me, what is your name?" "Ryan," he replied, straightening despite the pain coursing through his body. "Captain Ryan Hayes." The alien mother nodded solemnly. "I am Keleth," she said, "mother to Luma, and now, protector of you and those under your command." Keleth's words hung in the air, carrying weight far beyond their simplicity. Ryan glanced at Luma, who was watching her mother with wide, curious eyes. Slowly, tentatively, she reached out a tiny hand toward Keleth. The alien mother responded by extending a claw, allowing Luma to touch it gently. A spark of light passed between them, illuminating the bond they shared. For the first time since finding Luma, Ryan felt a sense of peace, but the road ahead would undoubtedly be fraught with challenges. He knew they had taken the first step toward understanding and perhaps even trust. But as Keleth turned her piercing gaze back to him, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was far from over. The asteroid field was eerily quiet now, the chaos of battle replaced by an uneasy calm. Keleth stood tall and imposing, her glowing red markings pulsing softly as she surveyed the humans and her child. Ryan knelt on the ground, still holding Luma close to his chest. His body ached from the strain of shielding her during the attack, but he pushed the pain aside, focusing instead on the moment at hand. He could feel Keleth's eyes on him, studying him with a mix of curiosity and something else, something that almost resembled respect. "You have placed yourself in harm's way twice now," Keleth said finally, her deep voice carrying a note of surprise. "Why would you do such a thing for someone not of your kind?" Ryan hesitated, searching for the right words. How could he explain something he barely understood himself? Finally, he spoke, his voice steady, despite the exhaustion weighing him down. "Because it's what anyone would do if they cared about someone," he said simply. "It doesn't matter where she comes from or what she is. She needed help, and I gave it to her. That's all." Keleth tilted her head slightly, considering his answer. Expression softened ever so slightly, though her sharp features still radiated strength and authority. "Your kind is strange," she murmured. After a pause, so fragile, yet capable of great courage, Ryan managed a small smile, though it hurt to move his bruised face. "We try." Luma stirred in his arms, her luminous skin glowing brighter as she looked up at Keleth. The child let out a soft chirp, reaching one tiny hand toward her mother. Keleth extended a clawed finger, allowing Luma to touch it gently. A spark of light passed between them, and Ryan felt a pang of emotion he couldn't quite name. It was as if he were witnessing something sacred, a reunion long overdue. But before the moment could fully settle, Keleth straightened abruptly, her glowing markings flaring with intensity. "We cannot linger here," she declared, her tone firm once more. "The ones who attacked us will return with reinforcements. They seek my child for reasons you cannot comprehend." Ryan frowned, glancing back at Emily and the others. "What do you mean?" he asked cautiously. "Why would anyone want her?" Colette's gaze darkened, her claws flexing slightly as if in anger. "Her light? It holds power," she explained cryptically. "A power some would use for destruction, others for control. Neither intention is just." Ryan's stomach sank. He had suspected there was more to Luma than met the eye, but hearing Keleth confirm it made the weight of their situation even heavier. If rival factions were willing to fight and kill for Luma, then protecting her would be far more complicated than he'd imagined. "We need to get off this rock," Liam interjected, stepping forward nervously. "If those ships come back, we're sitting ducks." Keleth turned her piercing gaze to Liam, studying him briefly before nodding. "Agreed. But your vessel is damaged. You will not survive another encounter without aid." "What are you suggesting?" Ryan asked, his brow furrowing. Keleth's glowing markings dimmed slightly as she lowered herself to one knee, bringing her massive form closer to their level. "I offer you sanctuary aboard my ship," she said, her voice steady. "In exchange, you will return my child to me." Ryan stiffened, his grip tightening instinctively around Luma. The thought of handing her over even to her own mother felt wrong somehow. He glanced down at the child, whose wide eyes were fixed on him with unmistakable trust. She had grown attached to him, just as he had grown attached to her. Letting her go wouldn't be easy. "She trusts me," Ryan said quietly, meeting Keleth's gaze, "and I've promised to keep her safe. If I give her to you, how can I know she'll be okay?" Keleth let out a low growl, though it lacked malice. Instead, it carried a note of understanding, or perhaps frustration. "You doubt my ability to protect my own flesh and blood?" she asked sharply. "It's not about doubting you," Ryan replied quickly, raising his hands in a placating gesture. "It's about making sure she feels safe. She's been through a lot. Losing her again, she will not be lost." Keleth interrupted firmly. "Not while I draw breath. But neither can I guarantee her safety if we remain here." "Why is it?" "Against us, human. Decide." The pressure of the moment weighed heavily on Ryan. He glanced at Emily, who gave him a small, encouraging nod. Then he looked at Luma, her shimmering skin glowing softly as she watched him with innocent curiosity. Finally, he turned back to Keleth. "All right," he said, his voice resolute. "We'll come with you, but I'm staying with her at least. Until I know she's truly safe." Keleth studied him for a long moment, her glowing eyes unreadable. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Very well," she said. "Why, my word. No harm will come to either of you aboard my ship." With that, Keleth rose to her full height and motioned for them to follow her. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, but obeyed, knowing they had little choice. As they made their way across the rocky surface of the asteroid, Ryan kept Luma close, whispering reassurances to her whenever she whimpered. She clung to him tightly, her tiny fingers gripping the fabric of his uniform as if afraid to let go. When they reached Keleth's ship, Ryan couldn't help but marvel at its design. Sleek and angular, it seemed to blend seamlessly into the darkness of space, its surface reflecting faint traces of starlight. A ramp descended silently, revealing an interior bathed in soft golden light. The contrast to the cold, harsh environment outside was striking. "Come," Keleth instructed, leading them inside. The air within the ship was warm and humid, carrying a faint, earthy scent. Strange symbols glowed along the walls, pulsing rhythmically like a heartbeat. Ryan felt a sense of awe wash over him, though he remained cautious, keeping one hand protectively on Luma at all times as they moved deeper into the ship. Keleth paused near a large chamber filled with glowing plants and crystalline structures. The room hummed with energy, and Ryan could feel a subtle vibration beneath his feet. "This is where we will part ways for now," Keleth said, turning to face them. "Luma requires rest and healing. This place will provide both." Ryan hesitated, reluctant to release Luma even for a moment. Sensing his hesitation, Keleth knelt down once more, lowering her massive form until she was eye level with him. "You have my gratitude, human," she said, her voice softer than before. "Few would risk their lives for someone not of their kind. Fewer still would stand against those who seek to harm them. You have earned my trust." Ryan swallowed hard, meeting her gaze steadily. "Just take care of her," he said finally. "She deserves that." Keleth nodded solemnly. "She'll have it." With great reluctance, Ryan handed Luma over to Keleth, who cradled the child gently in her massive arms. Luma looked back at Ryan, her glowing eyes wide with confusion and fear. For a moment, Ryan thought she might cry, but then Keleth began to hum softly, a low melodic sound that seemed to soothe the child instantly. Luma relaxed against her mother, her glow steadying as she drifted off to sleep. As Keleth carried Luma into the chamber, Ryan stood frozen in place, watching until they disappeared from view. Only when the door sealed shut behind them did he realize how empty his arms felt without her. Emily placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You did the right thing," she said softly. "She's with her mother now. That's where she belongs." Ryan nodded, though the ache in his chest told him it wasn't going to be that simple. He had formed a bond with Luma One that wouldn't fade easily, and deep down he knew this wasn't the end, whether it was fate, duty, or something else. Entirely, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that his path was now intertwined with hers and with Keleth's, for better or worse. His journey was far from over. The chamber doors slid shut with a soft hiss, leaving Ryan and the crew standing in silence. The golden light that had bathed the room moments earlier dimmed slightly, casting long shadows across the sleek alien walls. Doors, his mind racing with questions he couldn't answer. Was Luma truly safe now? Did Keleth honor her promise to protect her? What role, if any, did he still have to play in all of this? Emily broke the silence first, her voice gentle, but firm. "We should get back to the ship," she said, glancing toward the others. "There's nothing more we can do here." Ryan hesitated, his feet rooted to the spot. He wanted to argue, to insist they stay until Luma woke up, but deep down, he knew Emily was right. They were guests aboard an alien vessel, outnumbered and outmatched. Pushing their luck wouldn't help anyone. Slowly, reluctantly, he turned away from the doors and followed the group back toward the entrance ramp. As they stepped outside, the stark contrast between the warmth of Keleth's ship and the cold emptiness of the asteroid field hit them like a slap. The jagged rocks loomed menacingly overhead, their surfaces reflecting faint traces of starlight. In the distance, the horizon sat waiting, its battered hull a reminder of how close they'd come to disaster. Liam let out a low whistle as they approached. That could have gone worse, he muttered, running a hand along the scorched metal of the hull. Still, I don't think I'll ever forget being chased by 6 alien ships. Let's hope you don't have to, Emily replied dryly. Though there was a hint of relief in her tone, Ryan didn't join in the conversation. His thoughts were still on Lumond on Keleth. Something about the alien mother lingered in his mind. Not just her imposing presence, but also the unexpected bond they seemed to share. She had thanked him, trusted him even. That wasn't something Ryan took lightly. Before they could board the horizon, however, Keleth appeared once more. Her massive form emerged silently from the shadows, glowing markings pulsing softly as she approached. The crew froze, unsure what to expect. Had she changed her mind? Was she here to send them away or worse? But instead of hostility, Keleth spoke with surprising calmness. "You are free to leave," she said, addressing Ryan directly. "Your debt to me is repaid. You saved my child when I could not. For that I owe you more than words can express." Ryan blinked, caught off guard by her words. "I didn't do it for thanks," he replied honestly. "I did it because it was the right thing to do." Keleth tilted her head slightly, studying him with those piercing eyes. "And yet, here you stand, willing to risk everything for someone not of your kind. Tell me, human, why do you care so deeply?" Ryan opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again, unsure how to explain. Finally, he shrugged. "Maybe because she reminded me of what matters. Protecting those who can't protect themselves. Doing whatever it takes to make things right." Keleth's glowing markings flared briefly, as if reacting to his words. Then, unexpectedly, she knelt down before him, lowering her massive frame until she was eye level. "You are unlike any human I have encountered," she said, her voice softer now. "Your courage, your compassion, they are rare qualities among your kind." Ryan felt a lump form in his throat. He wasn't used to praise, especially not from someone as formidable as Keleth. "I'm just doing my job," he said finally, though the words sounded hollow even to him. "No," Keleth countered firmly. "You are doing far more than that. And for that reason, I offer you a choice." "A choice?" Ryan repeated, frowning. Keleth nodded. "You may return to your people, carrying my gratitude and the knowledge that you have done good. Or," she paused, her glowing eyes locking onto his, "you may remain with us. As a guardian, it's not just for Luma, but for our people. There is much work to be done, bridges to build between humans and mine. Few would understand such a task better than you." The offer hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Ryan glanced back at his crew, who were watching him with wide eyes. Liam looked skeptical, while Emily's expression was unreadable. It was clear they hadn't expected this turn of events. "What about the others?" Ryan asked finally, gesturing toward his team. "They came with me. They're part of this too." "They are welcome to stay or go as they choose," Keleth replied, "but know this, the path ahead will not be easy. Trust must be earned on both sides." "Are you prepared for that?" Ryan didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned his gaze toward Keleth's ship, where Luma lay sleeping. He thought about the bond they had formed, brief as it had been. He thought about the battles they had fought together, the sacrifices he had made. And he thought about the future, not just his own, but the future of 2 species standing on the brink of understanding. Finally, he nodded. "I'll stay," he said firmly. "At least for now. Someone has to make sure this works." A flicker of approval passed through Keleth's glowing eyes. "Then it is settled," she declared, rising to her full height. "You will join us as an honorary guardian. Together, we will forge a new path." The crew exchanged uneasy glances, clearly divided on what to do next. Some, like Liam, were eager to leave, while others, like Emily, seemed reluctant to abandon. In the end, they decided to split up. Liam and 2 others volunteered to take the horizon back to human space, carrying news of the encounter and the fragile alliance that had begun. Emily, however, chose to stay with Ryan. her loyalty unwavering as the shuttle lifted off, leaving a trail of dust in its wake. Ryan watched it disappear into the vast expanse of space. A strange mix of emotions swirled within him: sadness, excitement, fear, and hope all rolled into one. He turned to Keleth, meeting her steady gaze. "What happens now?" he asked. Keleth placed a clawed hand on his shoulder, her touch surprisingly gentle. "Now we begin," she said simply. "Come, there is much to show you." With that, she led him back toward her ship, Emily following close behind. Inside, the golden light greeted them once more, warm and inviting. As they walked through the corridors, Ryan couldn't help but marvel at the intricate designs etched into the walls, the hum of energy vibrating beneath his feet. This was a world unlike anything he had ever known, and yet it felt strangely familiar. When they reached the chamber where Luma rested, Ryan felt his breath catch in his throat. The child was awake now, sitting amidst the glowing plants and crystalline structures. Her shimmering skin pulsed brightly as she spotted him, and she let out a delighted chirp, scrambling to her feet. Without hesitation, she ran toward him. Throwing her tiny arms around his legs, Ryan knelt down, pulling her into a tight embrace. "Hey there, little one," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "Looks like we're not done yet." Luma chirped happily, nuzzling against him, as if afraid he might vanish. Behind them, Keleth stood silently, watching the scene unfold with an expression Ryan couldn't quite read. Perhaps it was pride, perhaps it was gratitude. Whatever it was, it filled the room with a sense of peace, a fragile, tentative peace. But peace nonetheless. As Ryan held Luma close, he realized something important. This wasn't just about protecting a child or earning the trust of an alien species. It was about something bigger, something worth fighting for. A chance to bridge the gap between worlds, to create something new and beautiful out of chaos. And fear, and for the first time in a long while, Ryan felt truly hopeful.